Welcome back to Obscure Gaming, the segment that I do so infrequently that I'm honestly surprised if anyone even remembers that I do this segment. But it's a segment where I talk about obscure games, or games that I think are obscure but you don't, but close enough. Now it's been about a year, so whoops, that's probably my fault. But it's okay, you guys, because I have come back to you with a gift, a game from a far-off mystical land called China. And that game is Pocket Monster Saphire for the Game Boy Color. But wait just a second, Yuriofwind, you say in complete defiance. Sapphire wasn't obscure. Me and like 4 other people I know loved it. Also, you spelled Sapphire incorrectly, there's 2 P's, and while normally I'd be inclined to agree with you, and then fix the typo quickly in hopes that no one else saw it, this time I can do no such thing, because the people who made the game spelled it that way first, so technically it's their fault. But also, if you've been looking at the screen, you may have figured out that this game isn't actually Pokemon Sapphire, which makes this a bootleg and the people who made it liars. And as I've said in the past, nothing will sell your game quite like lying about it, so good on you guys. Now on the streets, this game goes by many names, such as Pokemon Sapphire version, Sapphire with 2 P's that time, Pocket Monster Ruby, 2003 Pocket Monster Carbuncle, Carbuncle of course being everyone's favorite color, and we can't forget both Digimon Crystal 2 and Digimon Saphire, probably the 2 most revered versions of this classic title. Though no matter what you call the game, that doesn't change its identity, for much like Pokemon, it too is an RPG, though, to spice things up, it's a strategy RPG. Not unlike that of Pokemon Conquest, a game I haven't played yet, and thus have no grounds to compare it with this little gem. But even so, by mixing in some elements of Pokemon with those of a strategy RPG, you get a game that, while isn't amazing by any means whatsoever, is more than adequate and fun to mess around with, at least for a little while. And so, let's hop into the game, shall we? Now to start, I feel it's important to give a little rundown of the game's story, considering the plot is shoved into your face as soon as you start the game. To go along with the plot, the game provides handy, easy-to-follow unrelated images, like this picture of a Digivice, which I'm going to pretend isn't a Digivice. Plus, the game is full of all this poorly translated text, with some of the worst text wrapping I've ever seen, which makes me feel like I've found a winner. So allow me to tell you the tale of Pocket Monster Saphire with just 1 P. After winning the long-time-lost Improbity Badge, the Rocket Brigade barbarically destroy the piece of Magic Baby's world. I should note right now that the game refers to the creatures as Pokemon and Pocket Monsters, though most of the time it just calls them Magic Babies, which is basically what a Pokemon is to begin with, so moving on. Even more, they crazily loot previous Magic Baby. Being aware of this, Zhao He and his pals decide to stop their devilry, but only to be imprisoned. Way to go, Zhao He, whoever you are. Also, I'm sorry for probably saying your name wrong, I don't speak Chinese. Anyways, in order to find the scattered host and rescue the Pocket Monsters, see now they're called something else, but rescue Pocket Monsters from the Rocket Brigade, Pikachu, though losing touch with Zhao He, decided to go out for a battle with his pals because the last time someone went out with their pals, everything went swimmingly. However, all the way are full of complicated problems, comma, this time, ... Can they really get out of all these problems in a whole skin? Not a day goes by that I don't ask myself that same question. Though in order to find out if they did indeed get out of all these problems in a whole skin, you'll have to play the game for yourself, because having played it myself, I can safely say I barely understand what the hell is going on. See, there's a couple of issues with how the story is presented, and it's not just the poorly translated text, although that does help. It's other things, like the crappy text wrapping, having lines end mid-word. Not to mention, a lot of people talk in all caps, but the icing on the cake is that the text goes by really fast, so even if it was perfectly translated, you still wouldn't be able to keep up with what anything or anyone is saying. Here's an example from Bootleg Officer Jenny. No, you do not train T. Eacher, tape team cannot enter Priva Telly unless you have Pa. Shh. Now take note on how that sounded like nonsense. It took me a solid 6 times to figure out what she was talking about, and when I did, I realized that I didn't have a Pa. Shh. So I couldn't even do anything. It was a very sad moment for me. That aside, to be honest, the story, when you do manage to decode it, is nothing captivating, and For the RPG story lovers out there, perhaps you see that as a bummer, but keep in mind, this is a bootleg. Personally, I didn't think there would be a plot, let alone one in a language that I can actually kind of understand, so personally, I appreciate the effort. Not to mention, it sounds dumb and it makes it funny. Besides, the nonsensical story is hardly the focus here, as what makes a game is its gameplay. So let's go ahead and segue into that section. As far as strategy RPGs go, this one isn't anything out of the box. It's a pretty standard romp when compared to others in the genre. Though, by mixing in elements from the real Pokemon games, you get a game with enough not actually unique qualities that do make it, if nothing else, an interesting experience. For a bit. Now your game time will be broken up into wandering around this map to visit various locations, to perhaps chat with some English-impaired citizens, or visit the Baby Alliance, more on that special place later. Other than those lovely activities though, you can fight, and really fighting will take up the majority of your time, just like in every other strategy RPG and RPG in general. Though before you hop into battle all willy-nilly, you should know the basics. Being based on Pokemon or Pocket Monsters, of course all your party members are magic babies. Also, all of your magic babies have fucking ridiculous names, which is what happens when you take the Chinese Pokemon names that are based on the Japanese names and give them a literal translation, thus leading to your fighting force consisting of such winners as Bibitortis, Lolo Rock, Fireball Rat, Casey, Froggrass, Fat D, and the weirdest of them all, Pikachu, with a lowercase p. Now while laughing at the stupid names everyone on your team has, you may notice that just like in real Pokemon, these babies have types associated with them. Though, as you can see right here, they don't look quite right. I mean, Ivysaur isn't a water type and Pidgeotto isn't an electric type. The reason for these seemingly incorrect Pokemon types is that the game uses its own variation on said types. The game has 5 different types: Celebrity, Balance, Strength, Superpower, and Defense. These types roughly correspond to their actual counterparts, Celebrity being the electric flying type and Strength being the fighting fire type, just as an example. And much like in Pokemon, each type is both strong against one type and weak against another. But now that you understand the basics, it's time to head into a strategic turn-based RPG experience. Like other games of the genre, you'll lay out your troops and begin moving them across a grid-based map. On said map, you'll find treasure, houses that have English information to give you, plus items, and of course, you can always hang out at the Pokemon Center because it's not like Nurse Joy is ever doing anything ever. Though your main objective is of course to move in on your foes and eliminate them. Them and their baby boss. Battles themselves are your standard, hey, I'm going to hit you, and then you can hit me, and then my turn is going to end, and when it's yours, you can hit me, and then I'm going to hit you back, and eventually one of us is going to die, either due to loss of health or from old age, and the victor will usually be you, as the AI isn't really that smart. They just kind of blindly run into your guys and get murdered, even if they have a type disadvantage. Even the baby bosses are pretty stupid, because all they do is hang out in their little house base thingy. You can just chill right in front of them and they won't do shit. And while the bosses do have a bonus of getting healed by their magical house and being able to deal out decent damage due to the whole being a boss thing, you can easily avoid any and all direct combat with them by just hanging back and spamming special moves. And sure, it's cheap as hell, but it's not my fault babies can't come up with coherent strategies. That one's on them. Now through the course of the game's battles, you'll gain not just levels, but also elemental badges, which you can use to evolve your magical babies. Said badges being the only method for evolving your team, as that's just how this game decides to roll. And this is where that Baby Alliance comes into play, because what better place to give birth to your baby's new evolved form than at the Baby Alliance? A hospital maybe? Sure, but do hospitals have these fancy curtains when magic babies get born? I don't think so. From there, you can take your newly evolved babies to head back into battle, rinse and repeat until the game ends. It's a strategy RPG, you guys. Surprise! Things don't really get much more deep than that. Though, to be fair, I think in the case of games such as this, you know, bootlegs, it's okay that things don't get too deep, because that's usually when something breaks and then you're falling through platforms and no one's having a good time then. For what this game sets out to do, it does a slightly more than adequate job. Hell, just having Pokemon in the game makes it a more interesting romp than some of the other strategy RPGs I've played. And while you can certainly do better in terms of game choices, you could also do a lot worse in some regards. So considering this is just some unlicensed game that I didn't think would run properly, let alone be kind of fun, that's saying something. Though with that said, there are some issues that do bog the experience down just a tad. Not so much the bad AI, I like them running straight into death, it amuses me. See, this game, as well as its other versions, have a number of glitches, some of which are slightly game-breaking a little bit. For example, towards the end of the game, during a battle, you may be attacked by invisible enemies that you can't see nor defeat unless you save and reload the battle. Which brings up another issue, as sometimes when you save, the game will crash and corrupt your save file. I wasn't kidding about the slightly game-breaking thing, you guys. These aren't the only glitches, though they are the only two that break things, which is why I mentioned them in particular. They can be avoided or lessened by using an emulator, but some people like to have the authentic experience of playing a non-authentic game on their authentic product. And for you people, watch out and Godspeed, you crazy bastards, I love you. But that's the gameplay in a nutshell. While it may not do anything spectacular, it doesn't really need to. It's set out to play like a strategy RPG with Pokemon in it, or Digimon I guess, and it did just that. Sure, it's a little broken and messed up, but that's what you get with the territory, and if nothing else, this game provides something that the bootleg territory rarely provides. Fun. And for that, color me impressed. But speaking of colors, I don't see those correctly. So we're gonna segue into the presentation and talk about the graphics and the music and stuff. You like the colorblind segue I did there? Thanks. Now graphically, considering that it's both a Game Boy Color game and a bootleg, I think it looks pretty good. The fields are all loosely based on areas from the first two generations of Pokemon, like the inside of this building, or this random location with grass, or this hellish location with pots and fire that I don't think was in any of the Pokemon games at all, actually. There's not really much more to say about the fields other than that buildings look really out of place on them, and some of the maps have these big empty spots with nothing in them. So I'm gonna talk about those magic babies now. The Pokemon sprites that the game provides for both the field and battles look quite nice. While moving around the field, most babies can be easily identified as their Pokemon counterparts. Squirtle looks like Squirtle, Pikachu looks like Pikachu, mission accomplished, guys. The field sprites don't have any animation, unfortunately, but that's a small gripe. Something that I feel is a nice touch, though, is that the game makes your team red or orange colored and the enemy team blue or purple colored, meaning you can easily see who's bad and who's good, which means I can avoid stupidly selecting enemies and trying to move them around. In battle, the sprites certainly look more impressive. The Pokemon are fully represented and have some decent animation to them, with all the key animations intact. Attacking, getting hit, evading, dying, it's all there and it works. Sure, some of the battle animations are questionable, like whatever the hell Trico is doing to me, and I also find it a little odd that Pidgeotto has a plus symbol for an eye instead of an eyeball. I know it's not my place to judge his life decisions, but I just happen to notice. The only real issue that I can draw from the visuals is that this particular battle screen right here hurts my eyes a bit for some reason. Other than that, it gets the job done, so no complaints from me. Now for audio, this is where things get a little special. Not for sound effects, those are generic as all hell. Of course, the game doesn't feature any voice acting, and there's also no audio from the Pokemon themselves, their cry, if you will. So that aspect of the sound is forgettable. The music, on the other hand, took me by surprise. See, usually with bootlegs, when they have music, it's terrible, making the games unlistenable sometimes. However, the creators of this game, thinking quickly, remembered the one out to that issue, and that's using music from another game, which I'll now demonstrate, as well as dedicate to all the people asking about that Gundam video. It's still in the work, you guys. I have writer's block, and it's a bitch. Look, here's some music. Yeah, that was the theme song to Mobile Fighter G Gundam for the unaware, a song I love, certainly, though I was a bit perplexed as to why I was hearing it while Golem was fucking someone up. Yeah, the game kinda stole its soundtrack from one of the Super Robot Tyson games, a little bit, which I suppose is morally wrong, but I really like that first opening to G Gundam, so I'm willing to let this slide. Great job on the soundtrack, you guys. Next time, though, you should really steal the soundtrack to Kamen Rider Gaim, as it's pretty kick-ass, as is the show. So you guys should all go watch Kamen Rider Gaim, is what I'm really trying to say here. Acer subs or TV Nihon, choose your poison, watch it, it's awesome. But that's Pocket Monster Saphire, with the 1P. When placed aside others in its genre, it may not seem like anything impressive, but then again, it's not really meant to compete with those titles. In terms of bootlegs, however, this is definitely one of the better ones out there. Sure, the baby thing is kind of stupid, and the English is silly sounding, but if you're a fan of Pokemon, this is worth checking out, if for no other reason than curiosity's sake. But this has been Obscure Gaming. Thank you for watching. Hey guys, welcome back to End Slate, where the video doesn't end until I say so. Hi! By the way, I hope you enjoyed the new Obscure Gaming. I know it kind of took me a year to make a new one, and I'm sorry about that. I think it's because it was the 13th of them, so it was like unlucky 13, you know? I'm also sorry if I sounded a little rusty. I haven't done that video type in a while, because it is more of a review structure instead of the structure I use for gaming mysteries or bullshit creepypasta story time. So that may have been a little rough, but things can only get better from here, and I do have many more Obscure Gamings planned for the rest of the year. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video, but hey, enough about videos. Let's talk about other videos. Other stuff, because that's how this works, evidently. I don't script it. Let me show you guys videos. Here's a video perhaps you'd want to check out. It's the last video I did on this channel, in fact. It's a bullshit creepypasta story time on Super Mario Dark Time. I actually, surprisingly enough, thought that video turned out decent. I don't know why, because I usually hate everything I make, but that story was stupid in a way that I like. It felt authentic. I like that kind of stupid. It's good stuff. So, I'm going to recommend that, and the other thing I want to recommend is, I believe, part 18 of my Let's Play of Corpse Party on the Gameplay channel, which I just recently started uploading over there again. I had not done so for a long time. Plan on uploading more in the future, and yeah, of course, I did start playing Corpse Party again. That game's still, surprisingly, it's still scary. Go figure. So you can check that out if you want, and that's for the bottom of the screen. If you like the video and you want to like it or subscribe or do the other things that people on YouTube always beg you to do during End Slates, you can do that, and it's definitely appreciated. From the bottom of my heart, but if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. Only do it if you want to, is what I'm saying. Appreciated, but not demanded. I do hope you enjoyed. Did I say enjoyed? Did I say that you guys enjoyed or did I say that this is all falling apart? This End Slate's all falling apart. I'm never gonna script. I should probably end the End Slate. Fuck. Next time on End Slate, who knows what's gonna happen? Maybe Yuriofwind will be able to form coherent sentences. Probably not. See you guys next time on End Slate. This one sucked. I'm sorry.